For decades, Pastor Joyce Meyer stood as one of the most influential voices in modern Christian teaching, a woman whose sermons filled arenas, whose books sold millions, and whose television program reached viewers around the world every single day. But in 2025, something has changed. Behind the polished sermons and carefully crafted public image, the cracks are starting to show. And now, millions of longtime followers are asking the same unsettling question. What is really going on with Joyce Meyer? In early 2025, a decision she made sent shockwaves through the Christian broadcasting world, a sudden, unexpected pause of her long-running program on one of the largest faith networks in America. At first, the explanation sounded simple. But the more people looked into it, the more troubling the story became. Add to that a growing list of critics raising new concerns about her theology, her finances, and her leadership structure. And suddenly, Joyce Meyer finds herself facing some of the biggest challenges of her career. Rumors are spreading. Supporters are confused. Critics are louder than ever. And for the first time in years, her future looks uncertain. This is the story of how a respected pastor, a best-selling author, and one of the most recognizable Christian figures in the world found herself surrounded by controversy, and why, for many observers, things simply aren't looking good for Joyce Meyer right now. Joyce Meyer's television presence was one of the most stable pillars of Christian broadcasting. Her daily program aired around the world without interruption, building a loyal audience that trusted her to deliver messages of hope, faith, and practical encouragement. That's why her sudden decision in early 2025 to pull her long-running show from a major Christian television network stunned viewers, partners, and ministry supporters alike. This wasn't just a minor change in scheduling, it was a dramatic shift that instantly raised serious concerns about what was happening behind the scenes. The announcement came with carefully chosen words. Joyce Meyer Ministries explained that the pause was due to a disturbing scandal involving the network itself, a controversy tied to allegations of misconduct and mishandled accusations within the network's leadership. Meyer's ministry said they could not, in good conscience, continue airing their program while such issues were unresolved. For some, this explanation made sense. She wanted to distance herself from questionable leadership, but for others, the timing felt odd, and the details seemed too vague to fully satisfy the public's curiosity. In the days that followed, viewers flooded online forums and comment sections with questions. Why had Meyer suddenly cut ties with a network she had worked with for years? Was the scandal truly the only reason, or was there something deeper happening within her own ministry? Was the pause temporary, or was it the beginning of something much larger? Every unanswered question seemed to create three new ones. Behind the scenes, media analysts pointed out that leaving such a large platform could significantly weaken her influence. Christian television networks still reach millions of viewers, many of whom are older audiences who rely on TV rather than online streaming. Losing that core demographic risked shrinking her ministry's reach, donations, and global presence. In a world where visibility equals influence, stepping away from a major broadcast partner can have long-lasting consequences. Even supporters of Joyce Meyer quietly admitted that the decision felt out of character. She had always been remarkably consistent with her broadcasting schedule. Her show rarely took breaks, even during personal challenges or external controversies. So for her to voluntarily withdraw from a long-established network made people wonder if the network scandal was simply the final push, not the true cause. Some critics suggested that Meyer may have wanted to distance herself before more details became public, protecting her ministry's image before questions could spread. Others speculated that internal shifts within her organization, financial concerns, leadership changes, or strategic restructuring may have played a role. None of these claims were proven, but their existence alone shows how unstable her public standing had become. When people start filling in the blanks on their own, it often means they feel the official explanation isn't enough. Before this moment, Joyce Meyer was seen as someone who rarely faced major public setbacks. She kept her image polished, her message consistent, and her ministry tightly managed. But the removal of her show exposed something no one expected: vulnerability. It showed that even a well-established religious figure can find themselves at a crossroads when outside controversies collide with internal pressure. What made the situation even more troubling was the silence that followed. Weeks passed with no new updates, no detailed statements, and no timeline for when or if her program would return to its former platform. Silence can be powerful, but in this case, it worked against her. The longer she remained quiet, the more people assumed something bigger was happening. By spring of 2025, it became clear that the decision was more than a temporary pause. It signaled the beginning of a challenging season for Joyce Meyer, a season in which her credibility, her message, and her ministry's future would be tested in ways she likely never anticipated. And for many observers, this was only the beginning of the troubles surrounding her. As the broadcasting controversy simmered, another issue began resurfacing, one that had followed Joyce Meyer for years but was now returning with more intensity than ever. Critics, theologians, and even former supporters were reigniting debates about Meyer's teachings, raising concerns that added fuel to an already delicate moment. For a long time, these debates stayed on the sidelines. But once her show went off the air, those concerns suddenly took center stage. One of the biggest criticisms surrounding Joyce Meyer revolves around her association with the prosperity gospel, a belief system that teaches God rewards faith and sometimes financial giving with material blessing. While Meyer has publicly softened her stance in recent years, even admitting that some of her views were out of balance, many still associate her with messages that blend faith with financial expectations. For her critics, this raises red flags about whether her teachings encourage spiritual growth or financial dependence on her ministry. Over time, Meyer attempted to shift her tone. She emphasized gratitude over gain, faith over formula, and endurance over entitlement. But for many observers, the shift seemed too subtle to erase years of earlier sermons that heavily emphasized personal prosperity. When old clips began circulating on social media in 2025, many taken out of context, but still damaging, they reignited a wave of criticism just as she was trying to avoid new controversy. Viewers who once admired her now questioned her credibility, and those who already disagreed with her saw an opportunity to voice their concerns louder than before. The backlash wasn't limited to theology. Many pointed to lifestyle concerns that have followed Joyce Meyer for nearly 2 decades, allegations of excessive spending, questions about financial transparency, and scrutiny over how much of her ministry's wealth is controlled by her family. While Meyer has often dismissed these claims as misunderstandings or misrepresentations, the shadow of wealth remains hard to ignore. Large properties, expensive furnishings, and ministry-owned amenities frequently become talking points in online discussions, especially when compared to the simpler lives of other religious leaders. In a time when transparency is becoming more important across all industries, especially religious ones, Meyer finds herself stuck between her old reputation and her newer attempts at accountability. Some church leaders have applauded her for adjustments she has made over the years, like changing how book royalties are handled or joining financial accountability organizations. But critics argue that these changes don't erase the past or address long-standing structural issues within her organization. The internet has only intensified the issue. Clips from her older sermons continue to circulate uncontrollably, often stripped of context, leading to misinterpretations and exaggerations. In an era where online perception can overshadow reality, Joyce Meyer's image has become vulnerable in ways she never faced during her earlier years on television. For a figure who spent most of her career controlling her message and presentation, the unpredictable nature of social media has become one of her biggest challenges. What makes this moment even more complicated is that Joyce Meyer's audience is divided. Her loyal followers still admire her deeply. They defend her online, attend her conferences, and share her videos across social platforms. But even among supporters, there is a quiet sense of confusion. They see the controversies. They hear the criticisms. And without clear answers from Meyer herself, doubt begins to creep in, slowly, but noticeably. For someone whose entire ministry is built on clarity, confidence, and emotional transparency, this growing uncertainty is dangerous. It erodes trust, it weakens authority, and it creates space for more critics to step forward and question not just her teachings, but her motivations and leadership. By the middle of 2025, the combination of theological criticism, resurfaced clips, online backlash, and long-standing financial questions had become a storm she could no longer ignore. Each controversy might have been manageable on its own, but together, they painted a picture of a pastor who was facing one of the most difficult seasons of her life, with no clear roadmap out of it, and unfortunately for Joyce Meyer, the storms were still only beginning. While public controversies and debates over theology dominated headlines, there was another layer to Joyce Meyer's challenges: the financial and organizational realities of running one of the largest ministries in the world. Her brand, her books, and her global outreach rely heavily on structured management, donations, and media platforms. But by 2025, cracks in this system were becoming increasingly visible, adding another dimension to the perception that things weren't going well. For years, critics have pointed out concerns about how funds are allocated within Meyer's ministry. Allegations of a lavish lifestyle have long accompanied her name. Reports of multiple luxury properties, expensive furnishings, and a private jet have fueled the perception that the ministry's wealth is concentrated in ways that may not reflect the charitable mission it claims. While Joyce Meyer Ministries has repeatedly defended these expenditures as necessary for operations or leadership purposes, the optics in the current climate are problematic. In a world where accountability and transparency are demanded, even routine spending is scrutinized heavily. Structural concerns within her organization also surfaced. Some board members are family members, a fact that critics argue can compromise independent oversight. Even if operations are conducted properly, the perception of nepotism or conflict of interest damages credibility. In addition, the pause of her long-standing television program meant a sudden drop in visibility and revenue from donations tied to broadcasts. For any large ministry, reducing access to its audience is not just a PR problem, it is a financial one. Adding to the complexity, Meyer's ministry has diversified into multiple channels, including digital streaming, social media platforms, and global conferences. While this diversification can be beneficial, it requires careful management. Reports suggest that coordinating multiple platforms, international outreach, and the day-to-day operations of the ministry has put pressure on both staff and leadership. Any misstep in communication, scheduling, or fundraising can amplify criticism and lead to loss of support. Another challenge involves compliance and regulatory oversight. As a major nonprofit organization, Joyce Meyer Ministries is required to follow stringent financial reporting and governance rules. Critics argue that while the organization has made improvements over time, questions still linger regarding independent audits, use of donor funds, and the transparency of financial statements. In an era where accountability in religious organizations is under intense scrutiny, any perceived lapse becomes fodder for public debate. Public perception plays a role too. Even with no direct wrongdoing, the combination of theological criticism, financial scrutiny, and organizational opacity contributes to an image of instability. Donors and followers may feel uncertain about continuing support, and partners who once aligned with her ministry may now hesitate to associate publicly. Reputation in this sense becomes as crucial as the actual operations of the ministry. Finally, internal pressure cannot be underestimated. Leading a global ministry is demanding under any circumstances, but managing criticism, declining broadcast influence, and ongoing controversy requires resilience. Staff morale and leadership focus can be affected when uncertainty grows, creating a feedback loop that impacts both strategy and execution. By mid-2025, these combined challenges: financial scrutiny, structural concerns, loss of broadcast platform, and internal organizational pressures created a situation where Joyce Meyer's ministry was no longer operating in its usual comfort zone. Each element amplified the others, producing an environment in which even loyal supporters began questioning how sustainable the current structure really was. The message was clear: to navigate this turbulent period successfully, Joyce Meyer would need more than faith and influence. She would need transparency, decisive action, and strategic communication to reassure followers, critics, and the broader public that her ministry remained both credible and committed to its mission. And as she faced these tests, the world watched closely, wondering if one of the most recognizable figures in modern Christian broadcasting could weather the storm. As 2025 unfolds, Joyce Meyer finds herself navigating one of the most challenging periods of her career. With a paused television program, renewed scrutiny over her teachings, and questions about her ministry's finances and leadership structure. The once seemingly untouchable pastor now faces a reality in which her influence and credibility are under pressure like never before. For someone whose career has been defined by consistency, confidence, and authority, this is uncharted territory, and it raises serious questions about what the future holds. The first and most immediate challenge remains visibility. Television has long been the backbone of her ministry. Millions of viewers relied on her daily broadcasts for inspiration, guidance, and connection. The sudden removal from a major network created a gap that no social media platform or alternative streaming outlet could fully replace. While her ministry has tried to adapt, relying more heavily on online streaming and digital outreach, the question remains, can she maintain the same level of influence in an era dominated by traditional broadcast reach and instant online scrutiny? Alongside visibility is credibility. Joyce Meyer has spent decades building a reputation as a relatable, grounded, and compassionate pastor. But the combination of her past prosperity gospel teachings, recurring criticisms about wealth, and the resurfacing of older controversial messages has made some followers hesitant. Even the most loyal supporters cannot fully ignore the concerns raised by critics and skeptics alike. Rebuilding trust, or at least reassuring her audience, is now an essential task if she hopes to maintain long-term support. Financial sustainability also looms large. Donations and book sales have long supported her ministry, and fluctuations in audience engagement can have immediate effects on income. The pause on her main broadcast not only affects visibility but also jeopardizes a significant revenue stream. While her organization is still operational, even small disruptions can ripple across international outreach, staff compensation, and charitable initiatives. For a ministry of her scale, the stakes are high, and financial missteps could exacerbate existing criticisms. Beyond these logistical concerns, Meyer faces the challenge of perception management. In today's age, public image is shaped not just by reality, but by how that reality is communicated. The media, social platforms, and independent commentators are quick to amplify missteps and interpret ambiguity as failure. Any delay, vague statement, or miscommunication is immediately scrutinized, potentially leading to irreversible reputational damage. Transparency, clear messaging, and a proactive approach are crucial if she wants to regain control of the narrative. Despite these challenges, it's important to recognize that Joyce Meyer is not without tools for recovery. She has decades of experience, a global support network, and a personal brand strong enough to withstand criticism if managed wisely. Adjustments in leadership, financial transparency, and public messaging can help mitigate risks, while targeted outreach to core supporters can maintain engagement. However, these measures require decisive action. Hesitation or delay could allow skepticism to grow unchecked. Ultimately, the story of Joyce Meyer in 2025 is a cautionary tale about the fragility of public trust, the volatility of media influence, and the pressures that come with operating a global ministry. Her current circumstances illustrate that even the most established figures are not immune to scrutiny or crisis. And while she has weathered challenges before, the combination of controversy, criticism, and reduced visibility makes this period one of the most consequential of her life. For millions of observers, the question is no longer whether Joyce Meyer can continue preaching, it's whether she can adapt, regain trust, and navigate the complex landscape of modern religious broadcasting. Her next moves will determine not only the future of her ministry, but also how her legacy is remembered. In a world where influence is fragile and perception is everything, Joyce Meyer's journey in 2025 is a test of resilience, strategy, and faith, one that everyone is watching closely.